And starting.
And we're live. Okay. I'm here with Jay. We're going to be doing some wax rims. He's got a full upper immediate denture. So these are the JV dentures that you've been having in here for the upper and the lower wall. Things have been healing. I've got a lower partial and upper. The teeth have been out since November. Does that sound right? Yeah. November, December. So it's been six and a half to 7 months of healing. And so we took our final impressions last visit. And final impressions, there's a video about that. And so we sent this to the lab. They make a final high definition final cast, and then they put this wax rim is not super high definition on the inside. It basically just keeps it stable. But then we get wax, and they kind of give us an idea of, well, we want to support the lip, and we also want to have a horizontal, and then we also want to mark the midline, as well as where the alas are of the nose, because that's about where the tips of the canines are going to be. So I'll walk you through that process here. On the lower, we have 4 teeth that are going to be anchoring in our partial, which will be really nice. There are some cingulum rests in here, as well as some mesial rests on these ones. The reason we do mesial rests is because we have what's called a distal extension, or a Kennedy class 4, and that causes these will flex slightly during function. I also put eye bars on the lowers here because those flex out of the way and they're minimally visible. So when the final teeth are built, there won't be really much metal that will be visible at all. And the way that everything fits together should fit fairly snug in there. Okay, so we're going to start with the upper here, Jay, and I'm going to get you so I can stand up here just because that's a little easier as I'm kind of going back and forth. Sometimes we need to make some adjustments on the inside of the rims if there's any pinching of the gums, but usually that's not too much of an issue. And then Jay, do you have some sweet glasses? Did I get those for you? There we go. Just because I have a bright light, I don't want to get your eyes on that.
I have light sensitive eyes. That's appreciated.
And I'll put the headrest on the good spot there. I'm going to try not to use my light very much because that washes out in the video. So these guys we can leave right at the side. We need to look at those. And then we've got our 25 blade for all the markings. I will also steal the phone in just a minute. We'll take some photos and I'll splice those in just a little bit. So first things first, I want to just check to make sure we don't have any debris in the mouth, and make sure we don't have any sore spots and that everything's doing good. Okay, very good. A little easier with the light, a lot easier with the light, but that's okay. Like I said, I don't want to wash out the on that. Okay, so I'm going to set that in place. And you see, as I set that in, I use my finger to lift in that side, and then the denture, I kind of slide out the other way. I'm going to lift the lip up out of the way and gently press in. We're not jamming this in. We're going nice and gently. Sometimes there can be some little sore spots or some little hang-ups. So, okay. First thing we're going to check is, just go ahead and relax for me there, Jay, is what is the incisal edge position? As we kind of relax the lips, relax the lips, relax the lips, we're going to see that either we have pink that shows from this rim, or we're not going to have any pink that shows at all. And a lot of this is coaching the patient to just relax the lips, nice and easy. And as I'm kind of relaxing them here, you see that kind of all settles down. Patients are usually trying to help a lot, and they're kind of moving the lips around, and sometimes that gives us an artificial reading. So that looks just fine there. For females, tend to have a little bit more show of the lip at rest, and as we get younger, we show more at rest, and that looks more natural. As we get older, more and more show tends to look artificial and unusual, just because the elastin in the lips tends to decrease over time. They tend to sag a little bit more, and so it's normal. So this initial positioning on this, they actually made it, I thought they made it fairly tall, and actually it's right on target where we want it to be. So for for a gentleman older than about 40 or so, we'd want at rest, basically right at the edge of the incisal edge. Now, when Jay smiles, go ahead and smile big by saying E. Okay, we're gonna get about, that's probably 8 millimeters or so of show, and that's going to give us a decent amount of show of the final teeth in that area. Okay, so the top of those teeth, we're going to do some measurements here in just a little bit, but the other thing that I notice is this ridge right here, it kind of angles to the left side too much. It's kind of like coming out this direction rather than being a little bit more straight on. So as we give them the midline, they'll do a little bit better job of marking around here. But whoever built this wax rim shifted a little bit to the left, so I'm going to be doing a little bit of correcting of that. I'm also going to decide whether or not I want it out or in. I can always add wax if we have to, but that's not super fun. And so generally we're just taking away, and based on how the lip looks, okay, it's a little bit pushed out. We do want lip support, but we want to consider, okay, what's the natural relaxation of the lips? And we do have good bone support because the teeth were removed recently, so I'm not worried about kind of that caving in of the bone there, but without the teeth there, we do have a little bit of fallback. So that's pushed out a little bit too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lop off quite a bit of this with the old 25 blade. And some people like to use a hot knife with a flame. This wax that we get sent back from Shikosha is pretty soft, and so I'm just, as I'm looking straight down, I'm kind of trimming out that bit of excess. Those edges, you can actually mold it a little bit as well. So as I'm looking at that now, it's a little bit more centered as far as that prominence. Trimming some of this back. I don't want as much of that. And again, the lab is always going to overbuild this, and they should, because it's 10 times easier to take away additional wax that you don't need than to say, oh, I wish I had a little more. So they will give you more and expect you to trim it back. So now as I look at it from the top, it's got a pretty good profile. It doesn't push out very much. The height, I decided was good. So coming back in here and relax. Good. Okay. All right. Now we're getting less, that lip isn't quite pushing out quite so much. The edge there is right on the edge, and when you smile nice and big, good. So we still, like I said, we still, oh, sorry, I'm trying to pinch your lip there. Okay, and open for me just a little bit, okay. So right at that edge there, we've got about 8 to 9 millimeters of lip mobility there, so that is good. Now, I don't have to make this perfectly smooth. The lab will finalize all of that, but I do want to get a really accurate horizontal, really accurate midline, and then some basic ideas of where the canines are at. So midline usually will line right up with whatever this incisive papilla is. So this is the incisive papilla in here. You can see that just slight little indent there. So as I look at that, I'm going to say, you know what, that's probably right about there. We'll test that out here in just a minute, and I'll take some photos. Just a little bit off on that. Okay, so I'm going to check that out here. See what our midline looks like. The horizontal is not super important as far as getting the wax perfectly even, because I'm going to put a bite stick in there, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. Okay, so first thing is I'm going to have, he's turned toward me, which is great, and I'm going to make sure I'm looking straight onto his head, not his head this way or that way, but I'm going to try to make sure I'm looking straight on. The easiest way to know that is, can I see the same amount of ears on both sides? Sometimes when I take photos, I look at them, I'm like, oh, I was a little bit angled one way or the other. It's usually because the patient's facing a little forward, I'm trying to lean over, and I'm maybe not quite as set on that. So going back up so we can see a little bit more there. Okay, all right, so as I'm setting this, I'm going to lift this up, and I'm going to take a look at what's the horizontal of the eye line, where's the center of the eyes as we go down. Sometimes the nose is not centered. And so I'm gonna get a good idea of where the center line is right in there, and then I'm gonna mark that in a wax. Okay, I'm gonna remark that outside. So this one was too far to the patient's left, so I'm gonna move it over about 2 millimeters. Create a nice obvious notch there. Again, trying to be gentle every time going in and out, because these are not, it's kind of stiff material. Okay. And now as I look straight on again, checking, make sure I'm seeing the same amount of ears. Okay. And looking straight down the middle of the nose, not looking at the nose itself, not looking at the lip itself, but looking straight down from the eyes, looking at the eyes as a horizontal, the center line on those, and we're looking pretty good. Now you get to get a piece of floss in there. You can finalize that. The other thing I'll do is when I go to post-production, I'll take a line and I'll actually take a photo and I'll mark that line and confirm where that is on there. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at where the ala of the nose comes down. I'm going to mark that here, and again, just a little fingernail marking is fine. Ala of the nose as it comes down here. This will give me an idea of how big the teeth need to be, because that's the center of the canines, is about right there as everything comes around. So, I'll do a little bit of marking on those guys. Now those should be about equidistant. If they're not quite equidistant, you can kind of decide which way is a little more accurate. And again, when I'm taking the final photos, I can take a look at that and make any little minor adjustments that I need to. Okay, last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to mark the smile line, because we generally want the teeth, we don't want to show pink gums. We don't want the teeth sitting below the smile line and showing a lot of pink. So go ahead and smile really big. You say E again, just like that. Good. And I'm just going to kind of mark here. Careful not to get the lip involved with that, of course. And it's very common that one side of the lip is a little more active than the other. So it is normal if one side's a little higher than the other. So now I've got those markings. I marked the lip line, the center line, the ala lines there, and that'll give me a good reference and give the lab a good reference. So the measurement there, you know, the size of that migration of the lip from here up to here shows about 9 millimeters. So because we've got plenty of room up to the top. If the top of the flange was like right here, we would be a little more limited in how much space or what size of teeth we could use for this. So when I go into the molds, though, I'm going to look at one that has, so the canines are going to measure from here to here. I'm going to add about 2 to 3 millimeters on the edge of those, and then take that total distance, and the different molds will give me a different idea of what those numbers are. And then for 9 millimeters of lip migration, I'm going to use probably an 11 millimeter or so tall central incisor. Okay. All right. So we've got that in, or we've got that. We'll come back to that here in just a minute when we get the bite or the vertical dimension squared away. Next thing we're going to do is try on this lower one here. And lower partials, uncommonly, or not uncommonly, should fit pretty well. If we got a really good final impression. The teeth do like to migrate a little bit. There is a little bit of pressure. It probably took about 5 out of 10 pressure to get that to seat down all the way, because there's a decent amount, a little bit of friction in between those. But other than that, that looks really good. We've got the wax there that's going to help us give a good good markings and good stabilization between the uppers. But I'm going to make sure that everything seats down all the way. I want to make sure my rest seats on the mesials of those guys seat down all the way. They did a good job on those. There's cingulum rests on those front ones. Okay, and that is really good. That looks nice and secure. Okay, so we're going to check to see what our VDO looks like here. And what we want is that from where that incisal edge is, we want everything to be able to close down now. Open as big as you can for me there, Jay. Okay, so that's about three finger lengths, which is good. Good amount of opening. Okay, relax your jaw there. Now, to get the jaw relation in, to get the exact height, there's a bit of wiggle room here. So there's no exact science about how tall it is. Usually if you get the incisal edge pretty accurate, and then the lower, we've got enough space, you know, we've got existing teeth, it's kind of easier to tell. But if we don't have any teeth on the lower, we're basically going to be kind of estimating how tall it is. And the lab usually will give you, they'll give you about 12 millimeters or so of height down there, and that's a good starting point. So, okay, to get the VDO, or to get the jaw in centric relation, which is what we want, I'm going to have you open just about halfway there, Jay. I'm going to have you put your tongue back as far as it'll go. Up and back, good. And slowly bite together, good. So what that tongue back does is it pulls the jaw more into centric relation, and that gives us a fairly predictable bite rather than bite together and people focus on the front teeth and the lower jaw usually comes forward. That's the most common error that we see. So, okay, open for me again there, Jay. Okay, and I'm going to have you practice again. Put the tongue all the way back as far as it'll go. Slowly, slowly close down. Slowly keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Good. So that's where our marking is at. So I kind of take a mental note of where that all fits together. And we've got good set across everywhere. This one's a pretty nice one. If it was really high on the front and spacing in the back, I wouldn't worry about that too much. If the back was hitting heavy and I had a big gap in the front, I would take it out and both upper and or lower, and I would trim back. I would trim back those posteriors. But in this case, as I see where everything's at, we are basically dialed right in, which is really nice. So that makes this one a little bit easier. Okay, so next we're going to put in the bite registration, and we're going to register this bite. Then I'm going to take a few photos, and then I'm going to add in the horizontal measurement, and we'll be done. Okay, we're actually going to pick tooth shade as well. Okay, all right. We're going to practice this one more time, then we'll do it for real. Tongue back as far as you can. Slowly bite down, all the way down. Good, perfect. And open for me. Okay, I've seen that reproduced very similarly about 3 times now. So I should have an idea. Open for me just a bit there, Jacob. I should have a pretty good idea what it should look like. Or having a good idea what it should look like when it goes on. Okay, tongue back all the way. Slowly close down. Slowly close down. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And hold right there. Don't move. Just hold that gently right there. That bite ridge takes about 30 seconds to set up. I usually give it about 45 to a minute to be firm enough, and then it will almost kind of lock together because there's some notches in the back. If I trim back the wax rim a lot, I'll create my own new notches. But I'll show you that here in just a minute. And then the next step we're going to do is grab out
They're over there
brush.
at the 12 o'clock on the side.
Of course.
We'll update the checklist to include a micro brush now.
So that's set up just fine now. I'm going to take some photos of this because then I'll use those as a reference. And again, for these photos, we're going to making sure that we're seeing the same amount of ear on each side. Okay, and if we zoom in if we're too close, we get kind of a fisheye look. So, all right, stay relaxed just like that. We're going to take a snap photo here, and good. Okay, Jay, I want you to smile really big again with that E. Great. 3, 2, 1. Okay, a few photos there. Okay, and now we'll come back to we're back. Okay. So I took some photos of the first bite ridge of CR in position here. We do a final little add-on that helps us to get a good horizontal. So If you don't have any good spacing, go ahead and slowly. Yep. No. Go ahead and close down. Yep. Just gently close back together. Great. Just hold that gently together there. That's great. Okay. If you don't have much in the front here that you can add material to, you may have to make some new notches or something, or take things out. But like ideally, you keep everything in as it was, and we just add a little tack on here. Okay. Add some jelly. Got about 20 seconds. I'm going to roll this little guy in here, and then I'm going to be looking at the eye line, and I'm going to be holding this even with the eye line horizontal. And this will help the lab get a perfect horizontal. When they mount the case, they should mount this even with the horizontal. And then that'll give us teeth that we won't have a cant one way or the other. And, so between the midline, the horizontal, getting the sizes correct, the incisal edge position, and the bite, our next setup, 80 to 90% of the time, is exactly where we want it to be. Okay, all right. Okay, I'm gonna have you open nice and big for us. Good. Now, this, if there's not a partial on the lower, it all comes out nice and easy as one piece. Because we've got a partial on the lower that wants to separate out, so you can see the notches on there, and the notches up here hold everything in place. Horizontal, everything is held there as a physical record, which is great. I'm going to take these guys out by doing a little bit of shimmy up here. Okay, now shades. Using a shade tab is not particularly helpful in my experience. So really we want to pick the shade from one of 4 categories, and I'll discuss this with Jay after we close out the video here. But basically there's 4 shades. There's A2, A1, B1, and bleach shade. A2 is like very blending in, natural color. Sometimes we'll give an A3 if someone naturally has existing teeth that are fairly dark. We'll say A3 is kind of your, just blends into the background, nothing that anyone would notice. A1 is, ooh, those are nice looking teeth. People might notice them as nice looking, but not think twice about it, other than those are kind of nice looking teeth. B1 tends to be, oh, it looks like they've had work done. Those are really nice, maybe artificial teeth, or maybe false teeth or something. And then B1, or the bleach shade, is I want to feel like a Hollywood star kind of thing. It's like TV personality, very 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 bright. That has to do with, there's no wrong answer to that. It's just what people want to feel when they look in the mirror. What they want to present is something that blends in completely, doesn't, not a second look. Something that's a little bit lighter than, kind of a nice natural look. A nice artificial lighter look, or a little more, very noticeable, like wow, very bright look. So we'll pick the shade, and then we'll get everything packed up. I'll put the photos together, and I'll show some little snippets of that. That should do it.
All right, so I'm going to give you a quick rundown. After I've taken the photos of the patient, like you just saw, and then the horizontal check and all that kind of stuff, I'm going to take these photos and I'm going to pull these into Paint, Microsoft Paint, and then I'm going to use the line function, this line here, green here, and you have to figure out the sizes of it. A lot of times cameras make them too high definition, so you have to kind of bump down the definition by resizing it like this, make it smaller. Anyway, you can figure that out on your own. Needless to say, if you're trying to draw a straight line, it's a little bit tricky unless you push the shift button. So hold down the shift button, boom, straight line. It'll keep the line straight regardless of what you're doing. Okay, same thing with vertical lines. Okay, I'm going to figure out what the midline is here for our patient. And it looks like our notch on that guy looks pretty good based on the center of the forehead. The nose is a little bit further over to the patient's right, so this will work just fine. And then we take the ala of the nose, and that's about where the canine, again pushing shift to straighten it out. It's about where the canines are going to be. And then we can kind of get an idea of what the horizontal looks like. I'll save this, I'll file and save as, and save a copy of it, and then attach that to the email. I'm not going to pull up some of the other stuff because you can see patient information, so we don't show that. Okay, so I've now got my, the rim, and we've marked where those canine eminences are, and we're pretty close on this one. So then I'm going to take my handy dandy bendable ruler here that most of you should have, and I'm going to measure from the line that I made for the canine eminence all the way around on the curve. Okay, and this one is at around the curve is around 42, maybe 44 millimeters, and a canine width is about 7-8 millimeters depending on the size of the teeth. So we want to just kind of get a ballpark that we're going to be working from. So then I'll use that measurement from the center of each canine. Then we add with the half of each canine is the width of one canine, full circle. And so it's about 50. It's going to be about 50 millimeters from the distal of one canine to the next. If you go to you can look online, you can find Pala Mondial. These are denture teeth from Coulter. You can pull up this PDF, and it'll give you these. There's lots of different shade or denture guides out there. This is the one that I use with Shikosha Dental Lab. This is their premium teeth. They do have a more basic teeth that's in the what's called Arctic. That's the name of it. But I like to use these for most cases because I want to use the nicest teeth, and they're a little bit extra. They're maybe $100 extra, something like that. So then I'm going to pick a shape that then is going to work with the patient facial profile. Now, based on this patient's facial profile, it's either going to be fairly oval, maybe even a little bit square. Males, I tend to use teeth that are a little more squared off, a little more masculine looking, like this. Females, I tend to use ones that are a little more, these ones are definitely more rounded, they're more elegant. Some of these are a little more tapered. R is for rectangular, O is for ovoid, I think. What's R for? Rectangular, maybe? S is for square, and T is for tapered, and then L is for lower. So you can go through and kind of decide what you want. Looking at the style, whether it's tapered or round or square, whatever, will kind of get you in the ballpark. The other thing that I'll be looking at is what is the size. So this shows the size on a curve. If the teeth are actually mounted on a curve, and it shows you how long they are from one to the next, or from the outside of the canine to the outside of the canine. So that's why I do that measurement on the curve, to kind of get an idea of what I like. Now, you can just have the lab pick for you, and if you want to roll the dice on that, that's fine, but I do prefer to have a little bit more control over that. So for this patient, and you can see there the curved plane, the flat plane, it even has the incisal size on the front. So as I'm looking at where his smile line was, it's at right around 9 millimeters or so. If I pull that up again, his smile from here to here is about 9 millimeters. So I want the height of the teeth to be a little bit above that. You can have it right on the edge, but then you have more gingiva showing. So I'm gonna cover that up a bit more. So I want some denture teeth that are about 10 to 11, and then a width of about 50, and a curved of some masculinity. So with that, I'm going to look around 58. That's a little bit too big. 54, 52. That's kind of in the range. Shape of teeth there. These are some tapered teeth, so that's an option. That 477. Looking through, I don't really like the rest of these in there for a patient. Coming through here, these ones are looking okay. These square 443s, and that's 49. That's kind of in the range there. These ones are a little bit bigger. There's some more offset, so there's some options there that look okay. These ones here look okay. That's a 51 one there. So you can see that the canines on these ones have a little bit more of a swoop to them. These ones are a little bit more straight on. So anyway, you can kind of see what you're going to what you think you'd like to have for the patient. If you want them to pick, you can do that. That generally makes things a little more difficult because they don't quite know what they're looking at. So use your best judgment in using the style that you would like for your patient, and send that to the lab with all the information, and tell them which, depending on the lab that you're using. For us, against Shikosha, we're going to use these Mondial teeth. Send that also to lab, and then hopefully your wax trying comes back, and when you try it in and you do the smile test and everything, things will be great. So good luck with all that, and happy denture making.